Hey guys, Katie from the Katie Show blog here, and today I'm just going to go through a few things to consider before you move to Vicenza. So should I move to Vicenza? Is it good or bad? What do I need to know about it? These are like a few of the questions I get over and over again, so I kind of just wanted to make this video to answer it one time, and then when I get these questions I can just send this out. But I want to make this video, I'm going to do two videos, right? So this one is when you're still debating whether or not you should move there. Maybe you've got it as one of the options. So this will give you some information to decide whether it's even worth it for you. And then the next video I'll make probably next week will be more, so you've decided that yes, you want to move there, and these are some of the tips for like adjusting and settling in and things to be aware of. So this one's just going to be before you've even accepted it, should you or shouldn't you, some of the things to consider. And in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, but there's three big things that are like the deal breakers in terms of whether you should or shouldn't move there. So these are the big ones that I think you should know about, and everything else is overcomeable. You know, so like if you're worried about the language, that's an overcomeable obstacle. You can learn some phrases, you can learn how to do charades when you don't fully speak the language. Like, you can easily overcome that. You can easily overcome like learning the driving etiquette and things like that. Those things are really minor. The ones I'm going to talk to you about today are the more bigger picture things that I think make a big difference on your life. So let's just get into it. So this is all from the spouse perspective, right? It's only my perspective. But the first one I think you should consider is, how much do you love your career or your job? And this is the biggest one in my opinion. It's the one I get asked about the most, so we'll go into this one first. How much do you love your job? How much work have you put into a career? Because there's this thing when you live in Italy that you have to abide by, and it's called the sofa. Like a sofa you would put in your lounge room. And if I had to describe the sofa in the nicest and most tactful way possible, I could only describe it as a steaming pile of horse shit. It's so ridiculous, and it's so damaging to the families there. Okay, so what this means is, it's basically a rule Italy has where you as the family member can only work on that military base. Cannot work remotely for a company anywhere else in the world. You can't do any freelancing. You can't do stuff on the side, like if you bake or do photography or things like that. You can't do that for a profit. I will specify, you can do it, you can't make a profit. You know, you can't, you're not going to have the same opportunities because you can only work at the base. So you're talking about jobs at the commissary, at the takeaway food places, the food court, the PX, and then you're sort of teaching and your basic admin type government jobs. That's all you get. And the other thing is, you have to split that because a percentage of those jobs have to go to local people, right? So it's already a small base, there's less opportunities. You're competing for those jobs with local people, and then that's the only option you have to make money. Now, the reason I think this is the first and most important thing to consider is because if you've worked hard on your education, you've built that work experience in your career, or you have a very specific skill set, a very specific trade, like a specific kind of nursing, engineering, or something like that, this could involve a huge sacrifice on your part, this move, right? Because you might have to have a few years absent of being able to do those things. And if you're invested in your career, that could be shooting yourself in the foot even when you get back to America, because then you're competing against people who've still been in the workforce and getting that experience for the last 3 to 4 years or whatever it is, and you've had a gap, right? So you could be shooting yourself in the foot a little. Aside from just not being able to, you know, stay in your job, which you probably enjoy, I guess, if you're that invested, and get that experience and make that money. And people will always say, oh, if you want work, you can find it. And that's absolutely true. But the thing they miss with that is, if you have worked hard to get to a certain position, or you have those skills, yeah, you can find work, but you might be going from like a specialized nurse to an entry-level government admin job. So you can find work if you want it, but like that's still a big sacrifice to make, and it's a big ask to ask someone to have to, you know, change that dramatically. So there's not one answer for everyone. The main thing you should evaluate is, are you willing to make that sacrifice? Is the opportunity to live in Italy for a few years maybe more important and worthy of putting your career, you know, and your income on the back burner for a couple of years? So for some people, it's going to be like, yes, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I want to live overseas and have that experience. I can handle a couple of years making much less money, maybe not working in my trade or whatever. And for other people, it might be the opposite. Like, no, I love my job, I love my career, I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. But that's up to you and like whatever is best for you. But I just think you should be aware of that and aware of the sacrifice that you might be making. And there are definitely loopholes and ways around doing things. So I would recommend if you do decide to go there, go speak to the JAG office, the legal office, and get the advice and like find out where your boundaries are. And before you even start, like, do not ask me for how I kept up a blog. Do not ask me for anything about what I did. I will not answer you. I'm not a legal representative. I'm not giving out any legal advice, and maybe what I did wouldn't work for whatever your skills are or whatever you're gonna do, right? So just don't ask me anything. Ask the people who are professionals and who have all the answers. So that one I think is the most important one to consider, right? Because I think, in my opinion, it's the reason for a good percentage of the unhappiness people face there. It's because they're stripped of, you know, our jobs. Like, oftentimes they give us like a purpose in the day and like that reason to wake up and go and do stuff, especially if you enjoy working and you enjoy your career and what you're doing. So I think it's a big sacrifice that you need to consider if you're willing to make. So that's why I think that's the most important. The second most important one, I think, is what's your financial situation looking like? How much debt do you have? How much savings do you have? How good are you at budgeting? Are you disciplined? You can do it, or, you know, maybe not yet. And the reason I think this is so important is because, number one, there's a chance you're going to be stripped of one income, right, for your family. So you have to factor that in. But the second one is, I've seen it with a lot of families here, and they've already moved to Italy, but they're still carrying a lot of debt and sort of weighed down. Then they get stripped down to that one income or a much smaller income than what they're used to. And it can be a really hard position. And it's hard to travel around and like make the most of the opportunity of living in Italy if you're strapped financially. And you might get back to America not any better off than when you left, so you're still like in that same position, or you could be worse off. I was very grateful because the reason I was able to make the most of living in Italy is because we went there in a good financial position. But I said it a million times while we were there that like I was just grateful for that, because I think if we weren't, like, that Italy experience would have been totally different, and we just wouldn't have had the money to be able to do anything, like to be able to have those weekends away and experience as much of Europe as possible. So I think if you have the time before you move, I definitely recommend sort of looking at your finances, try to get that debt down as much as you can, try to get practice in sticking to a budget and like controlling impulses. I think those are really handy if you're living there, because then you're in a better position to actually enjoy Italy. If you're really strapped financially right now with a lot of debt and things like that, I don't know that moving to Italy would be the best option, because like I said, you do get strapped of that income. You have no family support to help with childcare. You know, you can get friends and stuff like that, but you're in a tougher position, and then things are expensive in Italy anyway, just because you're dealing with the two currencies. So I don't know what I do necessarily, but I think that's important to factor, because I've seen a few people who have like really struggled there, and it was just a financial thing. And the last big deal breaker I would say is number 3. Do you want to start a family or add to your family? Do you have those plans in the next couple of years? And the reason I think this is a big one to consider is if you were thinking of, you know, having a kid, starting a family, or having some more kids, Italy's kind of a great place to do it, because you already might be out of work, so you've got that like forced break. So why not enjoy the forced break to, you know, do what you had been planning to do and start a family? And also, if you were looking for a place to do it, Italians love family. They just love all things like family, kids, and pregnant women, and they're just like all about that. They even you'll find they put streamers and like bows on their house and car. Like when someone in the neighborhood has a child, you'll see that they get like pink or blue streamers all over their house and car and stuff. Like it's a cherished thing, you know. It's an important thing. So it's a good place to do it because you're going to be like well accepted. Breastfeeding in public is going to be easy. No one's going to bat an eye, and it's a good place since you're on that forced break already. Maybe it's not everyone, but like maybe you might be. And of course, like I'm totally speaking out my ass with this because like I don't have kids. These are just like my observations and from talking to people and seeing things in the community. But culturally, the family is like a welcome gift, a welcome unit. So the downside is you're going to be far away from family. So if you know, we're looking for that family support, it's going to be harder to get, but just tell them to come visit. Like, you know, it's a nice place to visit, and then they can experience it too. And just a heads up, if you are in your late 20s, early 30s, say, and you've been married for some time and you're child-free by choice, you're going to be explaining that one a lot because with the Italians, like, it's no compute. It's just like, it's from a nice place. Like, I always felt like it was from a loving place, but it was just like, but why? The older Italian people, they just did not understand that in any way. So you'll be explaining that a lot. Probably end up feeling like you disappoint them in some way. But yeah, if you were thinking about starting family, adding to your family, I think it's a nice place to do it. So I can't speak to the actual medical experience of having a child, what it's like in the hospitals, especially compared to American stuff. I have nothing to, you know, suggest in that sense. If you do have any tips, like pop it below. But the experience of like you know, using that time if you are taking a forced break from your job, you know, and you plan to start a family anyway, I think Italy can be a nice place for it. So let me know what you think, if there's any others you would add to this or any other tips you would add. For me, I think those three things, like when I talk to people, I always mention these three things as like, these are the ones you should take into consideration the most. Anything else, those like little back of the head fears and stuff, I think they are much easier to overcome, but these three are like the important ones that can really like make or break your quality of life. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think, and otherwise I'll see you next week and we'll talk about like the actual tips for assimilating in and adjusting to the new life in Vicenza. Okay. Bye. Okay, so I was just getting my photo ready for the cover of this, and I wanted to add something that I forgot to mention, and that was when you are planning out, you know, whether to take these opportunities or not and live in these places or not, just remember to ask the right questions. This is one thing I see a lot where people will just be like, hey, I'm maybe moving to Vicenza, is it good? A place isn't good or bad, it's a place. You know, the good and bad is a subjective assessment from people who have been there, right? But 100% subjective, and they might have completely different interests and values to you. So you're asking that wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. And I think it's important to remember that, so that if you are, you know, maybe planning to move soon or something like that, just remember to ask the right questions. What do I need to know about this place? What do you wish you knew before you went there? What do I need to prepare for? How can I best prepare for this move? Things like that, like what do I need to know about schooling or other specifics? Ask the right questions, get the right answers, and don't view places as like good or bad because they're inanimate. They're just a place, you know what I mean? And it's going to be what's most important to you and what you make of it at the end of the day. So just a tip if you are thinking of moving somewhere and trying to get some market research on a place, remember to ask the right questions, and then I have some more tips for you next week. Okay, now that's it. Bye.